Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much
Thank
for having
you for
me.
all your work. And I know we've talked before on our online platform, but it's so great to meet you. So great to have you here and to help parents today and tomorrow and ease their journey and empower families, like I like to say it.
Yeah.
I have some questions. Most of them are, from personal experience, but I have some questions also that came from the community, right? From the people and mothers and fathers out there. First and foremost, a tricky subject that I tell to all of my interviewees and people, sleep, right?
Yeah, big one.
A big one, because the lack of sleep, we just, as new parents, we are dreading it and we are looking for it everywhere. So we're looking for answers. And you open the internet and you open the Google and you look for sleep and how to sleep better. And you get all that information that we all know what it sounds like. Cry it out, Ferber, pick up, put down, time methods, chair methods, you name it.
Yeah.
Miss a tuning, letting them cry it out, close the door, and they will eventually figure it out. From a neuroscientist's point of view, from a doula, from a mother's point of view, how does that sound to you? Do we need to teach our kids to sleep?
I'm so happy to have places to speak about it and bring it up and really educate parents on it, because that sort of point of view, the sleep training and all the forms that it takes, really is the loudest voice in so many places. And parents will hear it from fellow parents, from family members, and from online, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest issue with it is that baby sleep is posed as a problem.
Yeah.
And if every single baby has a problem,
Then
maybe it's not a problem, right? And maybe we're trying to make babies sleep like adults, or trying to make babies sleep actually even better than most adults, right? And really asking them to do things that they're not able to do. So when we understand infant sleep and parent sleep, because we know they're very, very intimately related, we understand that infant sleep is completely unique. They have different brain waves in sleep, different sleep cycles, different circadian rhythm inputs and programming. And the way that babies sleep is actually really normal. It is really normal for them to need reassurance in the night, to wake up throughout the night, need a little bit of feeding, comforting, soothing. That's what we really want parents to expect. And if they can expect that, then they can also take care of their own sleep and well-being. And I tell parents, I'm also a mom, I know how this is, and I've worked with thousands of parents. All parents are tired.
Yeah.
It's tiring. A lot of us are doing it with very little help, and those of us who are lucky to have a lot of help, we might be more rested, but most of us are doing it alone or with a partner or husband. And even then, it's not
easy.
It's not easy. It's really not. I always said the times of my life that were the easiest with my son was when we had 3 adults in the house. When either my mom or my mother-in-law were with us. And that's because one adult can be with the baby, one adult can be cooking, cleaning, taking care of the home, and the other could be resting. But without the 3, nobody's resting. And nobody's kind of replenishing themselves, right? So we're really parenting in many places under pretty impossible conditions. So all parents are tired, regardless of how our babies sleep, but we can be rested enough while responding to our babies in the night. And we're gonna be tired, but hopefully not to a really depleted kind of level.
I find like if we understand and our expectations are set right, like we understand they're supposed to wake up in the night, they're supposed to need us, suddenly it doesn't become as tiring as it is with the perception that they're not supposed to do that.
Absolutely. And I've heard that reported by so many parents in the moment they have a transformation, just knowing, oh, I've been using so much energy worrying that there's something wrong with my baby, wrong with me, wrong with how I'm
trying to
mothering.
implement some stuff, creating so much, anxiety, or even going through with sleep training methods and then creating a relationship that needs some repair here and there. And I found that to be true to myself.
It's really tiring because even with sleep training, most babies don't respond to it either, and so
You're gonna fight back.
Exactly, and it's also going to make parents feel bad about themselves. And the last thing we want is for any parent to feel like they're failing or not doing a great job, because every parent is doing an amazing job. And feeling like a failure is a recipe for depression.
Yes.
And we can really help parents with any feelings of depression and anxiety and exhaustion with the mindset shift.
That was my case. So I've went through postpartum.
Yeah.
And it was when I changed my expectations, when I understood the biological norms, the normality, the how we're supposed to function, and that there's nothing wrong, that I'm not either traumatizing my kid or making a rod off my back. That's when everything settled in.
Absolutely. And we can also open space for parents to take care of their sleep.
Yeah.
And so much of that is also shifting some expectations. We're not going to be as productive, get as much done. We're going to, need some help, or things will have to drop, off the to-do list, because we need to be resting along with our babies, napping, resting, sometimes sleeping in, definitely going to bed early.
Yeah.
I always tell parents I have to go to bed early. We have to change the way we sleep when we have a baby too. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Speaking of help, so there's a little subject here in Romania, I'm not sure how it is overseas, that is a little taboo, nannies, right?
Yeah.
So paid help.
Yep.
Suddenly, if you have paid help, you are not the mother you are supposed to be. And I've had people saying, oh, why are you so tired? Because you have a nanny. Or, oh, you hired a nanny because you're not up for doing your job.
Oh my goodness.
And so there's a lot of pushback. But I'm so thankful first of all, for me learning to accept that I need help, because that was a struggle too.
Yep.
Second of all, for the relationship that they have. It's wonderful to see. Some parents have, some couples have grandparents and friends who can help, siblings, cousins, whatever. Some people have paid help.
Yep.
And how is that as a nurturing environment for the child? Is it a problem? Is it something that the child can benefit more than just the parents from the actual help? How does it look like from
I'm so happy you're asking this question. I've already sort of said it, right? It takes at least 3 people to take care of a baby well. And if we don't have family who can be there, and these days a lot of our grandparents are working too, right? Yep. And they're not so available. And that's the case in my family too. So I will always say it's the quality of the childcare, the quality of the nanny. So if our nanny is, in a deep, beautiful relationship with our child, which many are, it's just as beneficial and nurturing as any other, and even more so, I feel it's an enrichment in a lot of ways too. I remember with my son, I started going back to work around 8 months part-time. And we had nannies come over, and I could hear them speaking to him in Spanish and other languages I didn't know. They were singing songs with him I didn't sing with him. They took him to the park. And I always help parents kind of bridge the relationship and ease into the relationship. And, as I did that, the second our nanny came over, my son would just dive into his stroller and be like, let's go, let's go.
Did you ever experience jealousy? Because I did.
I felt 2 emotions together.
Okay.
Exactly. I was like, I feel some jealousy and joy at the same time. Because I think it touches on that belief that you mentioned in your question too, which is, should I be doing this all myself? And do I feel some guilt about not doing it all, or jealousy that he's going to have an intimate relationship with someone else?
Yes.
And it's definitely something we need to be aware of and understand. and know that it is a good thing. And we can feel multiple emotions about things too,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think it's really important for us as mothers to know we do not have to do it all of ourselves. We were never meant to. Our society's been structured the way it is for only a few hundred years, right? Before the Industrial Revolution, before modern times,
Exactly.
there were a lot of family members around that would have been helping, and community members that would be helping. And this is, sort of example of that. Yeah.
In your perspective, how does early nurturing shape brain development in infants? And if there are any specific aspects of responsive parenting that, enhance or help the cognitive development of young ones?
Yeah. The best thing about nurturing babies is when we do so, we help every single part of their development.
Okay.
Emotional, cognitive, probably the motor and sensory development as well. So yeah, the best thing for babies from 0 to 3, and it goes on past 0 to 3, right? People often make that joke with me. It's like, oh, there's 3, so
No more.
we're done.
I'm done.
That's not true. Things change, but they still obviously need lots of love and care. But yeah, from 0 to 3, it's really important to offer babies lots of touch, lots of words of loving kindness, lots of attention to their communication and needs, whether that's for play, for fun, but also for stress, hunger, all the things that babies are needing. They need us to really be aware and responsive to what they need, and to attune to them, to really connect with them and their emotional states as well.
Speaking of brain development, we all have that dream of our parents and our children as parents being able to manage it. And I'm talking about the emotions, right? Because we understand that they cannot hold it together and they're having meltdowns and tantrums. And
Yep.
when are we truly able to expect some kind of emotional regulation from their side in a way that is healthy, not just oppressed, so not just bottled up? Are we meant to expect for them to be able to manage, to be able to communicate their needs clearly? Because I've heard at 3 they're supposed to say something, or at 5 they're supposed to speak. At 12 or 16 they're still gonna, you're done. I mean, when are we truly meant to expect to have an adult conversation with all the feelings, with all, in a healthy way?
I think it grows incrementally with little ones. So certainly under 3, it's not really going to happen. Under 3, for most babies, I've seen some be more mature, kind of mature a little bit faster, but under 3, we're really I call us their missing brain part, right?
Yep.
They don't have that part that can be, I would say some of that self-awareness of emotions, and also have that cognitive ability to say, oh, I'm feeling a certain way, I see how I feel, and what can I do, to experience this emotion, work through it, regulate myself. So I've seen little ones under 3 name their emotions when they're upset, that, especially if we do a lot of that mirroring for them. Like, I would tell parents, like, we're holding up a mirror for them. So if they're having this tantrum, imagine you're holding up a mirror and sort of explaining to them, like, I see that you're stomping your feet and, you're yelling. I'm curious if you're feeling really angry right now because of this or that's happening. If we kind of help them out with that and show them what their behavior and their feelings are, they will learn it eventually. One of my sister-in-law loved the story. I think my son was about 3 at the time. We were at the beach and he was like, I'm too cranky to be at the beach right now.
Wow.
And she loved that story. And I was like, you have those moments sometimes that are like, okay, this stuff is working.
That's nice.
So I think that they might start learning to name some of the feelings, soon after infancy.
Yeah.
And then, between 3 and 6, you might see occasional, abilities developing, right? So, instead of, they might learn to stamp their feet when they're angry or push something or things that we can direct them to do. I always direct my son to, feel his feelings, but not to hurt himself or other people, right?
That's our boundary as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really useful. And so we've started to see some, at times, sometimes now he can kind of clench his hands and stomp his feet a little bit and work through it. And that kind of helps, right? If it's a huge emotion, he still will have it.
I know adults who are having a hard time, so it's not only them.
Exactly. And then he starts to develop it. So then throughout the rest of childhood, that they're kind of practicing more. Usually we say, around grade 1 is when a lot of executive function comes online. Okay. So that's like the prefrontal cortex in the brain. So that's why kids in school can kind of get in line, sit at a desk, right? Start to have a little bit more impulse control, a little more self-control in those school age years. But it keeps developing all the way up to age 25. Okay. So, so puberty is another time where emotions can be explosive, and it's another place for emotional development, and a place where we can start to learn more. But it's almost like a lifelong pursuit, right? To really be able to regulate them.
Some of us were only now getting the hang of it.
Absolutely, because and the other thing you mentioned too, which is really important for people to know, is a lot of us as parents were conditioned to, like you said, like push it down, suppress it, dissociate from the feelings. And so our kids are going to be way more, emotive than we might be used to. And it's important for us to understand that too, right? They're going to express it, they're going to regulate, and hopefully we are too.
Speaking of parents, and I didn't put this question, but it just popped in my head. As a new mother, I know that our brain starts to change. Right? How does it change, and how does it benefit? We know how it benefits the child, but how does it affect us because society always pushes us to be back to who we were before, like the wife you were before, the daughter you were before, the friend you were before. Does the brain allow us to go back, or is it more of a let's see who we are and that kind of a shift?
Such a good question. There was a study published this week, a new one, showing the changes in the mother's brain. They started imaging before pregnancy, and they imaged all the way through pregnancy and postpartum. I'm not sure how far postpartum, but definitely postpartum. And so we have a even closer look at how the mother's brain changes, and fathers' brains would change postpartum. So yes, as a mother, our brains drastically change. The study shows more information about how a lot of our brain areas actually get smaller, and they get smaller and more efficient. Okay. So it's not a loss of any kind, it's a gain, but a change, right? So we know that we have changes in our, all different areas that help us take care of our baby, but also increase our emotional intelligence and empathy. So we get really good at something called theory of mind, which is being able to understand the state of another person, which is really important for our baby. We get better at empathy. We get better at hearing our baby. Our brains actually change to be more attuned to threats to our children, and also to get pleasure from our children as well. So a lot of them are customized to help us be better caregivers, but they also help us be better humans. More empathetic, more connected. And a lot of people feel that way after motherhood, that they are probably more sensitive to the world, to emotions, to other people. And so there is definitely no going back. We're changed forever. We can detect the changes in parents at 70 years old. We can tell if people have been a parent or not at 70 years old. So the changes last forever. We're definitely changed. And so a lot of your relationships and your identity are going to change too. And this is a huge thing that we deal with as mothers when, like you said, society is saying,
pushes us back.
Be the same, look the same, act the same, pretend like you don't have kids at work, pretend like you don't have work at home. And we have to push back against that and understand were different.
So there's a misconception in Romania, and I think not only, but I hear it a lot here, that children in the first years of life, they don't remember. So I've got parents who are not taking their kids on holiday because why? Why should we drag them if they won't remember either way? Or they use it as an excuse for certain behaviors.
Yeah.
Is it true? Is it that they don't remember, or that they cannot express it? Because I think, and how much of that first year's memories does it affect us in the long term?
Such a good question. It's one of the biggest kind of misunderstandings of infancy, because most of us don't remember our autobiographical memories. So our, who, what, when, where memories from our babyhood, right? We don't remember when we were born necessarily. We don't remember our first step, a holiday that we took at 2 years old, something like that. And that's true. Those memories are still in the brain, but we can't necessarily access them. It's called infantile amnesia or childhood amnesia. But there are many types of memory. So another really important form of memory is called implicit memory. And these memories are not those who, what, when, where memories. They're memories of our experience that do leave permanent changes in the brain. And, my work focuses on the implicit memory of the emotional system. So a memory in neuroscience is defined as an event or an experience that happens that leaves a lasting imprint in the brain, a lasting connection or genetic change or protein change in the brain. And so the experiences between 0 to 3, they're not remembered like, I remember that holiday, but they are remembered like, I remember how I was made to feel in those early years. And so I would say, if a child's brought on a holiday, they're not going to remember the holiday unless you show them the pictures over and over again. And then they might have a, kind of memory of that. But they might remember being left alone. And there are a lot of stories of people who have felt serious impacts from that. Stephen Porges, not Stephen Porges, another famous trauma therapist, Peter Levine. Peter Levine talks about being left for 2 weeks as an infant, and then that had a major effect on him. Yeah, growing up. So, it definitely leaves a mark.
I remember we took a trip with my oldest, now oldest. She was 1.5 then. And we had a flight that was really, really bumpy. When we got home, she screamed. I was anxious because no one's really comfortable in a plane that goes ups and down. And we got home, and I think months later, when her vocabulary increased, when we were up, and I was telling her we're gonna take a trip with another airplane, I explained to her when we went off that plane that it was bumpy because it was a small plane. So next time we were in an airport, she asks me, are we going to fly with a small airplane or a big airplane? And I just stop and I ask her why. She had no idea. She just wanted to know, and it baffled me because, as we know, I thought she's not going to remember, she's going to forget it, all is fine. But still to today, she asks, we talked through it. So I explained to her, look, it was a bumpy road, you cried a lot. So I kind of put the memory, right, and then try to recall it for her. But still to today, we go to the airport, she's 4.5, she still asks, are we gonna fly with a small, medium, or a big airplane? Because and I was just so surprised by the impact, and I can imagine, speaking of different events or like sleep training, or how much impact we truly don't know our actions truly can have on their nervous system.
Absolutely.
For parents who are striving to create a nurturing environment while still trying, to set boundaries and limits, what is something that you would recommend to maintain that balance between still having limits and boundaries, but in a nurturing way. Because sometimes we feel so uncomfortable as parents putting boundaries up that we come across as being not so kind or not so nurturing. What is something that, like a key to keep in mind when we set up?
I love this question. I think I encounter it every day in my own life. Firstly, it's a great question because a lot of people will confuse like nurturing parenting with a permissive type of parenting that doesn't have limits and boundaries. But our little ones really need limits and boundaries. It keeps them feeling safe and cared for and protected. So that's important for us to know as parents too, right? And that this, having these limits are keeping my child safe, they're keeping me safe, and regulated too. So I think there's definitely a balance, but there is a really loving way of setting these boundaries and limits. And a lot of it is explaining to our children, regardless of how upset they are in the moment, right? So, if they want to, let's say we say you can watch one episode of Bluey and then we're turning it off and we're going to play a game, right? And then they get upset, they want another one. We might say something like, listen, mommy's in charge of your health and safety, and we're gonna watch a little bit of TV, but not too much, because that's what's good, healthy and safe for you.
Our brains can only take that much.
Exactly, and you can be upset. I understand it's upsetting. You felt like you wanted to watch a lot more, but this is what's safe, and this is what it's gonna be, right? And then we just kind of support the feelings that come along with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sometimes so hard because us as children, we were never allowed to put boundaries with our parents. And we don't know how to put boundaries with our friends or society right now. So it comes easier with children because you feel like you have more power or authority over them. So it feels like, oh, I said no, this is it. And
exactly. And I think I know our babies and children are very smart. And so we want to create these limits and boundaries that are about their health and safety, and that makes sense.
Exactly.
Because sometimes my son wants something that maybe I'm like, oh, it's going to make a mess, or,
It's for our comfort.
Exactly.
Not for their safety. And I love it when my daughter calls me out and she's like, we're at the point and we're negotiating. She's like, and I have an internal rule that if her argument makes sense, I will turn back on my decision.
Yep, same.
Because while I agree that, yes, you have to hold boundaries and limits, I think that if it makes sense to me and to her and we're having a discussion, it would happen the same with my husband, the same with the friends, then she has all the entitlement to challenge that and to get a different answer.
Absolutely. It's really healthy development, right? To be able to negotiate those things and to have some autonomy over their lives, right? And children also don't like when they're micromanaged and so controlled, right? So
none of us
we need
like
to listen to them too. Yeah.
If there's one message you would like to send to all our community out there and parents, and what would that message be?
I would say for everyone to appreciate a little bit the importance of 0 to 3 for babies' development and also for parents' development. It's a really precious time of life. It's highly emotional, highly intense, and highly transformative for babies and parents. And it's going to be a memory that the 3 years are going to be exponentially bigger in your memory bank than most other times of life, just because it is so emotional and transformative, and to have some reverence for that, right? To kind of try to appreciate it, learn about it, slow down, and take in the good moments.
And if I may add to that, I would kindly ask the society to be kinder to parents who have 0 to 3-year-olds, because I feel like they have more empathy for people who have dogs rather than people who have children of 0
We
to 3.
definitely need a lot of change in that
Thank you
area.
so much for everything.
Yeah, thank you.